Namaste to our audience and a very warm welcome to our guest, Air Marshal Anil Khosla, former Vice Chief of Air Force and also the DG Air Ops, to discuss a very, very important event of the Indian Air Force. Welcome, sir, to our show. Good evening, sir. Welcome to our show. Till the time, good evening, sir. Welcome to our show. Till the time our guest comes on the scene, I would like to inform our audience about today's event. I think he's having some technical problems. That is why he has gone off air. I think he will shortly join us. Till then, today we are going to discuss about exercise Tarang Shakti. It's a major multinational exercise being planned by the Indian Air Force in the later half of this year. It is an exercise in which 12 nations are going to take part. Along with the Quad nations, you will have UK and France also joining us in this exercise. And this is the first time that Indian Air Force is hosting such a large exercise in our country. In the past, the Indian Air Force has conducted joint exercises at the multinational level in Israel, in the US, but and also in Australia. But all these have been on foreign soil and also oriented toward the particular sector. One of them was in the US, so it was more oriented towards interoperability. The second one was in Israel, which was more focused towards the Middle East and the West Asia, and the third one was toward the Pacific, which was in Australia, Australian Air Base, and in which we had a fairly large number of nations. Essentially, 11 nations were taking part in that particular exercise. We now are going to conduct a 12 nation exercise in the Indian soil, on the Indian soil in Rajasthan, and the countries which are going to take part are United States of America, Australia, Japan, India, United Kingdom, and France. In addition, we will have six nations participating, which will be participating as observers. Most of the air assets of these countries will take part in this exercise. So, therefore, the scale of this exercise is going to be very huge. Meanwhile, I'm trying to just see if there is any issue with our guest. But till that happens, we will be seeking answers from our guest to various questions which are which may come to your mind. And the first one is, of course, I device not connected. Let me just see. Our guest is trying to log in, but the questions which we are going to be asking our guests are essentially, what are the planning and execution challenges in such a large exercise? And since this will be for the first time that the Indian Air Force will be doing it, I think it will be worth a while to listen to this aspect. We would also be seeking answers to, what are the cautions and precautions that are needed to be taken during such an exercise. What are the strategic and the operational advantages that accrue to India with such exercises? We will also be looking at the Russian fleet. As far as India is concerned, still serves as a major strength of the Indian Air Force. How are such exercises going to impact Indo-Russian relationship? This is a very important strategic question. Sir Dushant.
Yeah, so the no, me, it's giving a message that
Sorry for that, audience. In fact, there has been a technical issue with our guest system, so he's going to reboot. Till then, as I was telling you, that we were going to cover the Russian impact of this particular exercise, since it is happening immediately after the Prime Minister Modi's visit to the United States of America. How is this initiative going to serve India's purpose in managing its geostrategic challenges? This is again a very important issue, and here I am referring to managing the relations with China and Pakistan. Of course, Pakistan would not be that much of a worry, but definitely with China we have to be careful that such an exercise does not send a signal which may lead to some precipitative action. And finally, we would also be seeking his views on what is going to be the future trajectory. Till our guest comes online, I would like to tell our audience that such exercises have advantages at all levels. By that, what I mean is that when we do these exercises with other nations, another thing which I want to tell you is that the Indian Armed Forces, especially the Navy, took a lead in conducting these multinational exercises, followed by the Indian Army, which started doing exercises such as Abhyas, etc. But the Air Force also took on subsequently. Our guest has joined, sir. Sir, meanwhile, while you were off air, are you on, sir? I think he's still sorting out his audio. Till that happens, we will continue with our discussion. What we were trying to say is that these exercises convey strategic messages at the geopolitical level. They also serve as strategic advantages in terms of interoperability issues, as also give us some tactical advantages at the service to service level, at the level of units to units. So therefore, you will find that these exercises have a very very important impact on the overall impact, overall the relations between various countries. So therefore, it's a very important factor of military diplomacy as well. Uh, so therefore, coming on to the first question, which was planning and execution challenges in this kind of a exercise. In this kind of an exercise, you will find that the first and the foremost challenge would be that of communications, because the systems are by and large different of various countries. So communications have to be brought onto one plane. Then there would be challenges of logistics, because logistics also requires different countries have a different system. They also act in different methods to conduct their logistics supply chain. So therefore, that will have to be brought onto one plane, and that becomes the second major challenge. Similarly, you will find that uh, what is the overall scenario in which these exercises are to be conducted. Next would be to conduct such a large exercise of 12 nations. We also need the airspace to conduct such operations, although India does not have that problem, because India does have ranges, and we have the Indian Air Force itself has conducted Gagan Shakti, which is a major exercise which we did a few years back, in which the entire Indian Air Force had taken part. I was also during that time serving in the army. Sir, are you back, sir? Your voice is not coming, sir. I think you're mute. No sound, sir. There seems to be some issue with our guest, so we will carry on till our guests' technical issues are sorted out. It happens sometimes, you plan for everything, and ultimately some major mishap takes place. This is one of those mishaps in which our guest is unable to log on. So if you are hearing me, you could log on with your mobile, sir. Uh, so therefore, next is cautions and precautions during conduct. There are a lot of safety issues involved in managing such exercises, and therefore precautionary measures have to be taken before the exercise, during the exercise, phasing of the exercise. So there are a number of issues, and at that level these issues become much more much more pronounced, because common protocols have to be evolved, or each other's protocols have to be understood. So therefore, I think we will have to conduct this particular discussion on my own, and we will see if we can get our host for a while once he's able to uh, get this particular technical problem resolved at his end. There seems to be some major issue why his system is not able to connect. He is able to connect from the video, but his voice is not coming through. There is some problem on his audio system, and that is why it is not getting connected to me. Uh, Coming on to the other aspects of you know such exercises, they give you a lot of strategic advantages. First and foremost, for example, by conduct of such an exercise, a message goes into the environment about the the partnership of India and the bonhomie which India enjoys with these participating nations, and that clearly indicates a message to our adversaries who are there on the other side, to who are watching these exercises very carefully. So therefore, this exercise will also help us in providing that overall net security provider aspect for India in the Indian Ocean region. And if need be, we can collaborate with each other at the time of any major happenings in this part of the world with the partnering nations. These countries have a very powerful air force. Take, for example, the US. Take, for example, the United Kingdom, or for that matter, France, Australia, Japan. All these nations have a formidable air force. So therefore, that operational advantages will accrue. Interoperability is also important from the fact that, in terms of sharing of information, it becomes very easy in the future, in real time, if there are any issues, anything detected by respective surveillance systems. Say, for example, anything happening in the maritime domain, if a submarine is adversary submarine is going underwater, it can be easily detected by other countries' high tech systems, and they can then share it with us. So interoperability also gives us the advantages of intelligence sharing, which can then enable our maritime forces to react to a threat well in time and preempt that threat or deal with that threat. However, these exercises do also create tensions in the environment, and these tensions are, for example, after this exercise, I'm sure we will have to manage our strategic autonomy route which we are following as far as Russia is concerned. As far as China is concerned, China may become a little more hyper, a little more sensitive. So that may lead him to create certain activities or conduct some actions on our borders which may not be desirable, and therefore India must keep its guard up when we are doing such an exercise with our land forces and the air force, which is not employed in this particular exercise to conduct the operations along our borders. So the exercise also has the pitfall of the some negative aspects, in the sense that our security forces uh, should remain alert to a situation or to a threat which may be posed by our adversaries, which is in this case Pakistan and China. China being the more important one as far as our northern borders are concerned. We are currently on a standoff basis between the two nations. So is the case with Pakistan. although Pakistan is itself having so many problems that the chances of Pakistan trying to do anything stupid may not be that relevant, but you never know. Uh, Pakistan has never uh, behaved rationally in the past. It has taken some action. So, therefore, irrational actions by the leadership of these nations is very much going to be a problem. So therefore, coming on to the next issue, which is Russian fleet. Now that is also going to be a major problem. See, the Indian Air Force has a fleet of Su 30s, MiGs, the MiG 29, MiG 27. So we have these large number of aircrafts which are of the Russian origin. So therefore, their taking part in this exercise poses some additional challenges in terms of both logistics and communication, interoperability, etc. Uh, we hope that our guest is able to join us and take on from where I have left you all, or where I'm leaving you all. I think he's having
Can you hear
some
me?
major issues. Yes, now I can hear you, sir.
Can you hear me? Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I can.
Sorry, my apologies.
No problem, sir. It happens. Meanwhile, I was filling up the blank. So we will now straight away go ahead, sir. Basically, I had given them the background of this particular exercise. I would like you to take on from here itself the challenges in planning such an exercise, and what are the cautions and precautions which we need to take during conduct of this exercise. So you could go ahead, sir, with
Okay.
this after you reorganize yourself, sir. I know you have been in
Yeah,
a
this is Murphy's law. General Dushyant, this is
yes,
Murphy's law. We tested everything, and at least
yeah,
10 minutes before the event, and at the
event.
right event, the went off. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So we lost 10 to 15 minutes. We'll not waste time of everyone. Thank you very
yeah,
much for inviting me to this interaction, and wish you all the best in your endeavors of the strike dialogue. And it's a very, very relevant point, a relevant topic, because it's been declared that multinational exercise will be carried out in October, November, and a lot of media attraction took place. And again, it will come back once the date comes closer. And it's a important landmark event. And so we'll get on to the topic, and looking forward to the interaction after the talk. So you talked about planning, execution, and challenges of this exercise. So let me put one thing in perspective before I answer a question with your permission, General. So one is,
sure, sir.
it's a natural progression of exercises. It's not that we're jumping into it offhand. We started off with, as the military power and the economic power kept increasing. Earlier we participated as observers, then we went into bilateral exercises of lower scale, then we went into bilateral exercises with countries with higher scale. Thereafter, we have done exercises with all the major air forces of the world, and we have then graduated on to multinational exercises, but hosted in the other countries, 2 to 3 countries, mainly USA, France, and other places. Australia, Ishplak, recently we went. So now this is a landmark event in the sense the first time we are hosting a multinational exercise. So that is the
Oh,
perspective behind it. So coming to your
that,
specific questions related to planning, execution, and challenges. And I remember when we were together in service, DJ
yeah,
Aerops and Vice Chief handled quite a few of them,
correct, sir.
HIDR situations as well as man-made and natural and these exercises. So it's
Yeah,
a quite a task, and the activity starts almost a year maybe before the event. And I'll not go into full details, and not a staff check, and not required here.
yeah, yeah,
But two or three major issues I will tag. One is, the composition becomes very, very important. So that you have to decide which all countries will participate, because got a lot of strategic signaling messages which go across, and people start analyzing various things. So it is very important what all countries will take place, and what is the strategy, geostrategic concerns, and what is the signaling which needs to go across.
yes, sir.
Second
Yes,
is, while deciding the composition, there's another aspect related to military capability. You can't
yes,
have mix of military capabilities which are very advanced and very low, because if you are doing force application exercise, actual flying with fighter jets and all, it becomes a bit of a problem. Ideal, of course, is almost equal capability, but it always doesn't happen. So you call people as observers. That's why even if you see in this Tarang Shakti, 6 countries are observers and 6 are
Yeah,
taking part with the opposites. Okay.
six are active.
So what
Yeah.
happens is, yeah, sorry, you're saying something?
No, I said six are active and six are taking participating as observers.
So what happens is the lowest capability denominator becomes the landmark for the highest level of exercise, or the highest level of complexity in the exercise. Then
Mhm.
language issues need to be looked into, but now those problems are actually lesser because most of the countries are English speaking, and these exercises are conducted. But some countries do have a
So
language problem also. Okay,
France
so
and
that is
Japan,
composition. Yeah.
France and
Then
Japan
becomes,
maybe.
yeah, true. Japan, Vietnam, other places, a little bit of a issue. It's not a major issue at the moment, but it needs to be taken into consideration.
Correct.
Okay, second aspect is scale of the exercise. When I say scale of the exercise, what assets will take part? Fighters, transport, special forces, fighter controller. I mean, what sort of assets will take place? What will be the duration of the exercise? What will be the objectives of the exercise? How many phases you want to do exercises in? So all these need to be very, very carefully thought of. They have got a lot of repercussions. Okay, next important thing is where and when, because that also sends some political strategic signals. Then
Yeah.
security issues are there. The op environment has to be checked out. Administrative facilities have to be looked into. Infrastructure, supporting infrastructure is required. Weather conditions need to be taken into account. So it's a whole host of factors which need to be taken into consideration. Okay, then the other aspects related to finance, safety, and security of the equipment and people, supply chain and logistics, clearances, various diplomatic, security, political, overflight. I mean, there are a whole host of them. Legal issues are there. Suppose the ejection takes place or a mid-air takes place, then what happens? Who compensates whom? So MOUs, undertakings, so all those things need to be looked into. Then op environment is very, very important. Operating bases, airspace availability, the host of factors. Actually, it's a planner's nightmare. Okay,
Yeah.
then my bottom line, actually, whatever I picked up in conducting or planning and executing monitoring, is contingency planning. More you think about what all can go wrong, more you think about contingencies, the better
Yes.
prepared you will be. I remember when I used to chair these meetings, I used to put 2 or 3 chaps, and I used to tell them, you are the devil's advocate. Just keep bringing out things which can go wrong, so that we are
Yeah.
better prepared. So
Yeah.
these are the major broad things I covered, and of
So,
course, you have to start
so
well in time. Yeah.
the next question which comes to my mind is that what are the strategic considerations, before we undertake such an exercise, both in terms of positives as well as the negatives, which we need to be careful of while
Yeah.
planning such an exercise?
Yeah. So, strategic considerations, as I said, I covered some part of this answer
Mm.
in the first answer itself. What sort of signal needs to go into it? Like
Yeah.
we were talking about, like you also covered in the introduction, what happens in these exercise. So, they're very important part of it, and they send a lot of strategic message. So,
Yeah.
in this case. When we are jumping into hosting a multinational exercise, to my mind, the signal which is going around is that militarily we have reached, and economically, of course, it's a CNP which we take into account, that
Yeah.
we have the prowess to host a multinational exercise, which few countries have at the moment. Second is that our commitment has reached a level where we can strengthen the regional security matrix. Third is,
Okay.
we are ready to be a reliable partner in the global security system. And
Yes.
fourth, to my mind, is which I have been advocating, but we have never been part of a military alliance. But I always say, keep your mind open to collective security. And this could be one of the signals saying that, okay, we are willing to, have a bigger say or bigger participation in international military cooperation. So these are
Yeah.
the strategic signals which
Yeah.
can go through.
Yeah.
As far as,
This was some. This
yeah,
was something which I also emphasized. Like for example, if we have to do anything as a net security provider in the IOR, I think this kind of a alliance would need to be put into place to ensure that the security is provided over the IOR. That way,
True.
I fully endorse your points, sir.
Yeah. And you asked about precautions. I mean, there are a whole lot of precautions, but and safety precautions and cautions. But I'll tag only one issue which I practically experienced, and not only in exercises, even in other HADR situations, and also you also been in NSC, so you know the thing. That is, and we are veterans now, and the
Yes.
veterans and media have a responsibility in this aspect. That's why I'm tagging it.
Yeah.
I'll give you a practical example. So what happens is in 2015 we did an exercise with the UK, exercise Indradhanush. I was DG Air of that time, and the exercise went
Okay.
off very well, and all things were very good. A lot of lessons learned and all. Somehow, some of the keen defense analysts and media got into it, a sort of a debrief for the exercise, and they brought out sensationalism headlines. The kill ratio was 12 is to 1 in India of favor, and India is far ahead of the Western, this thing, our training, our values, and that's actually it has got no meaning. Why? Because in the exercises you don't fly actuals. You decide
Correct.
pre-decided. You decide the performance characteristics of the aircraft and the weapon systems and the radars and everything. It's a pre-decided, which is not actual, and based on that you will learn mutual lessons. And this thing was meaningless actually, and it created a lot of bad blood, and all the goodwill which was there went away. So we have to be very cautious about it. One more example I'll give you before we move on further, General. Nepal earthquake, if you remember, is not directly related to exercise. So what happened was, in the meeting I covered that aircraft are taking the relief material. When they're coming back, there are a lot of people who are stranded who want to be evacuated. So why not we bring them back? It will create a goodwill. So it was agreed. But the media started playing up more on the evacuation part, started giving numbers, and Nepal as well as other countries started projecting that India is only interested in evacuating its own force people, and not
Yes.
in
That.
serious about this thing.
Yeah.
Although
It
we
came.
did a lot, so it became negative. So that is a
Yeah.
caution which I want to give to people. Yeah.
You're right, sir. I think especially the Indian media has a habit of overplaying our prowesses. It's not to say that we are not good. We are. I think
Yeah.
we are one of the best fighting units
True.
which we have.
True.
But a question which nags my mind here is, which I am sure you will be able to throw light on. In this particular exercises, all the other nations are having Western equipment, except
Yes.
India, which is going to have a mix of the Russian equipment, which is Su-30 and MiG-29 and 27. Do you
Yeah.
think that is going to be a kind of a challenge as far as conduct of this exercise is concerned?
Yeah, so what happens is, you're right. A lot of concern comes up. Before I answer your question, I'll tell you another thing. Like, what happens is, in the planning stage also, and when you're discussing how to go about the exercise, concerns come up. Like, you rightly said, we have equipment from both the countries and both the camps. So what concern is, basically people say is that like we have S-400 now, correct? Russian origin.
Yes,
So
correct.
concerns come of the Western say, you are exposing our aircraft, our equipment to the Russians, and Russians will say, okay, you are exposing our this thing, and our shortcomings and weaknesses may be known by the others. So those
Correct.
concerns come. They have to be elevated during the planning stage in terms of talking to them, addressing their sensitivities, making sure some of the equipment doesn't take part in the exercise, or giving
Yeah.
assurance and trust building. So that's how it is done. Now, coming to the specific question of yours, as far as India-Russia relations are concerned, in a broader perspective, if you see, Prashant, we have equipment from all over. Okay, and actually, the war fighting ethos comes with these, but we don't blindly take it. We do exercises with a whole lot of countries. So whatever we pick up from these two sources, we tailor it according to our needs. We have to good establishment, tactics and combat development establishment, and aircraft and system testing. So both these establishments get to work whenever we pick up some new equipment, or we do learn lessons and all, and then we tailor it according to us. The
Correct.
second aspect is, even in Ukraine war, if you see, India did a tightrope walk, whether to join Western camp, and a whole lot of debate is going on, or to stick to Russian camp. 60% is Russian, 65% equipment is Russian, all those things. But we have managed so far very well. As the foreign minister says, when we go to buy, it is, buying best value for money. Okay, so far we have withstood the pressure. We have been able to manage balance. And if you see with Russia also, we do a lot of exercises. Although Russian exercises has not been publicized so much. When I was in the these planning stages in these higher ranks, I remember whenever we did an exercise with US, invariably the exercise was followed by exercise with
US
Russia.
Russian exercise.
Yeah, so balance has to be maintained, and balance not only in number of exercises, Dushan, also in terms of your sincerity, in terms of scale, in terms of content of the exercise objectives. Not that you just for logging sake, people are not fools. They also realize. So the balance, if you maintain, there is no problem as such. And the world
Although
has, yeah, world has come to
although
accept our limitations and compulsions. Yeah,
although this time I think we won't be into that kind of a challenge, because the Russians themselves are involved so deeply in Ukraine that they really
yeah,
won't have the time, effort, and money to conduct an exercise with us. I think it will be more of a assuaging on the
yeah.
conversational basis or persuasion basis that would be important.
Very
So
important point you brought out. Just let me give you one input,
yeah,
and then we'll move on further. A
yeah.
very important point you brought out. When I read all this media about Tarang Shakti and all that,
Mhm.
along with the exercise details, they gave a whole lot of exercises which you had done this year. And somehow the flavor of the reporting became that there is a flurry of activities with West, that we are going with West and we are doing a lot of exercises with West. I don't know whether intentional or what it is. That is the impression it gave. But what has
Mhm.
happened is, as I said, we always maintained a balance till up to COVID time. COVID time, of course, all the exercises, all the activities suffered. Post
They were
COVID,
stopped.
what has happened is all the other countries have started opening up for these exercises, engagements, and all those. But Russia is preoccupied with Ukraine, which you brought out. So what is
Mhm.
happening is it's giving a feeling that we are tilting towards West. It's
Towards the
not
West.
so. Yeah, it's not so. That's the point I'm trying to make. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
yeah. So
move it.
that's, I think that's important for the audience to note that it's not really a one-sided effort which the Indian Air Force is managing. Although I would also like to link another aspect to this particular point about having a mix of two blocks systems which we have. If you see
Yeah,
Ukraine, Ukraine didn't have the Western Bloc weapon systems, whereas we have both the Western as well as the Eastern. I think in any future challenge which we might face as a nation, we would have the capability to absorb any side's weapon system, and we won't be struggling for training, etc., to that extent what the Ukrainians are suffering as of today. What do you have to
yeah.
say on this point?
Yeah, true. So let me one aspect I've already covered. That we pick up the best of the equipment and best of the practices, and then we tailor it according to our needs. That is one advantage. So our training system, as you said, is quite good, and we are ready to adapt to any site. That is one. Second most important part is multiple taps. Although Indian Air Force gets told quite a few number of times, and in a negative way, in that we have too many inventories, and it is an inventory management is a nightmare, logistic nightmare. It is true,
Yes, yes.
maintenance wise, logistics wise. But positive side of it is that in case of need, if one tap closes, and we had a bad experiences earlier, that is why we have little bit of trust. I won't say deficit. I would say trust, caution with
Trust,
US. You know,
trust
uh,
doubt,
yeah.
trust doubt,
So
I will say.
twice we have been given sanctions and this thing.
Yes.
So in the time of need, if one tap closes, at least we have other sources available. That is a very important point. So that's a
Yeah.
good thing about it.
So flexibility wise, I think we are much better off
Pretty,
than the other. Sir, since we have lost out a lot of time, I'm going to straight away jump to the our final question, and then we will take on, because a lot of questions are coming from the audience also. So
yeah,
we will
yeah.
delve into that. My last
Okay.
question to you is, what is going to be our future trajectory as far as these exercises are concerned, and also overall of the Indian Air Force? If you could throw some light on that, I think that
Yeah,
would really help the audience.
yeah. I'll modify your question a little bit. I will add those words before your question. In your opinion,
Okay, sir. I mean,
because
obviously, it's your opinion. So it is not going to be the opinion of Indian Air Force as
yeah,
such.
of course, because yeah,
We,
I've
we
been
can only
retired
opine.
almost now. Yeah, three
We can
years
only
plus.
opine. Yeah.
Correct. So if I were to deal with it, I would say that firstly, we need this right progression which we are moving towards. So we should go into these multilateral exercises. So one is classify all the countries. classifications could be various. This thing, like one is countries which have got high technology, which are highly capable. They got
Okay.
exposed to combat. They're experienced, and we can learn a lot. That is the bottom line. The countries from whom we can learn a lot. Then
Okay.
second is countries where we may not learn that much, but they are very important to keep good relations with. Okay, and third is future prospects that the countries which we need to keep engaged. Fourth is neighbors, of course, especially with HADR. The neighbors, whenever there's a HADR situation, we will get involved. All the three services. So
Yeah.
there could be various classification and review this list periodically. That is a starting point. Then, to my mind, we should make a long-term plan, mid-term plan, and short-term plan. Long-term would be 5 to 10 years as far as exercises are concerned. We do make some sort of before retirement. The this initiative started with headquarter IDS and MOD to make a mid-term sort of a plan. But we are struggling from exercise to exercise every year. So if you make this broad plan, okay, these many countries we are going to engage. This is the frequency of the engagement. This is how we're going to maintain the balance. And in principle, if it is approved, then you have a guideline to go by. And
Yeah.
short term, you can always modify it to cater for the existing geopolitical situation. What is the, while the executing of the plan, you can always modify it. What signal do you want to send? What is the financial constraints? Whatever, according to that, you can modify. Then third is, of course, I have already covered, the balance has to be maintained. That's very, very important. So that factor we need to this thing. And fourth, I will stress upon that do not neglect neighbors. We have lost a few neighbors, as far as China is concerned. We need to
Mhm.
be magnanimous. We need to keep our neighbors engaged and with us. Okay. And minor one or two is that whenever you're doing a major exercise, we call it hop exercises. That should continue. While inbound and outbound, when you're transiting, when you stop at some place, maybe stop 1 day, 2 days extra, and do a small exercise with the countries in group.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Exercise.
Okay.
So
I mean,
you derive maximum benefit out of these. Yeah.
correct. I think it's
One
called
more.
chalte. It's called
Yeah.
chalte कुछ और लेके चलें. That.
One more last point I will cover before we move on, Dishant, is that while maintaining balance, we should move to more multinational engagements, in my view, because collective security is a norm of the day and it is important. And in our scenario, at the moment, we need that collective security till the time we become powerful enough to deal with our challenges. And to my mind, two things we need to do more is one is we need to do multi-service exercises, more of them,
Okay.
multinational multi-service. Okay.
Correct.
And I would go one step further that we need to go into multi-domain exercises as well, going into
Absolutely.
new domains of
Absolutely.
warfare. And but
Absolutely.
it's not that we just go in for multinational, multi-domain, multi-service exercises. No, it should be balanced between because what happens is in bilateral the interaction is much more, much deeper, and in the
In
multinational exercises the exposure is much more. Both have got their
much.
benefits,
Yeah.
so balance
Obviously.
has to be maintained. That is my
Okay.
recommendations.
Okay. I think, sir, before we move, one last question I'm tempted to ask you is, and that probably will interest most of our audience also, who are going to
Yeah.
listen to us later on, is that this exercise will definitely ruffle the feather of China. Definitely, it is going to. What do you expect the Chinese to do? What do you think? I mean, now you wear the hat of Xi Jinping and think, what is he going to think about? Given the fact that they don't consider India as any threat, the Shangri-La dialogue statement which his defense minister made, Shoigu made, I don't know, but what do you think will be the reaction of China?
Yeah, this is my once again personal opinion, and
Yes,
you're very right. Actually, China is going to react. All right,
yes,
and if you notice, even smaller events like any of our dignitaries visiting Arunachal Pradesh, they issue a
they
statement
react.
and sort of protest. So in this sort of exercise where 12 countries are coming and we are hosting a multinational exercise, obviously they are going to protest about it and say all sort of things. My only, and what should I say? I won't say worry. I would say that we need to be prepared and cautious and be prepared in that order about some activity or some action by China. If you see, every 2 years we have been having a major thing, starting with Chumar, then Doklam, then Galwan, and I call it pressure cooker theory, where he puts the pressure cooker on the fire, controls the
Yeah,
pressure in such a way that there's no major war as such, except for the Galwan, which went out of hand, maybe. And then keep it at a lower level. And while doing this, he tries to do all sort of stunts, one step forward, one sideways, and confuse the issue and gain. So that sort of activity, if he does, to divert attention, or to maybe make things difficult for us, or to some message, so that we should be contingency in our contingency planning, we should be prepared for. That is my take on the whole issue.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll take on some questions, sir. And first, there are some comments which I'll just quickly flash so that you get the sense of what people are thinking. As
Yeah,
far as the language is concerned, Atre says, as India has always has the best defense cooperation with USSR and later Russia. So possibly language challenge we will be able to meet. Of course, Russia is not there in this, but definitely with Japan and France, we should be able to. And we have done exercises with France very recently. So I think language challenge will not be a major issue as far as we are concerned. Coming on to next question is by Jan Chaturvedi. Interoperability with other air forces is practiced through these exercises. Based on the
yeah,
experience of these exercises, how jointness with other two services can be improved? This is a question
okay,
which he has extended to our own environments.
yeah. So you want me to take one question at a time, or
This is no, you can take on both together also, but the first one is really not very long.
okay?
So you
Yeah. So first question about languages, I agree. It's not a. That's why I said it's not a major issue as such. But some of the countries, when you do bilateral, there is a little bit of an issue. I remember when I was in younger days, I had a pupil from Myanmar. We were teaching him flying on MiG-21s. So question, he was very good, well trained, well this thing. Question was when sending him solo, if he was to go solo alone in the aircraft. So I said, there's no problem. He can, take off, land, everything he can do. But in case of an emergency, there might be a communication gap between, because of the, not only English, it is also the accent, and, people find it difficult to understand that sort of issues. But in multilateral countries, national countries, that one of the aspects you need to keep in mind, because when you're doing flying activity with a lot of aircraft, 120 aircraft are operating in a closed airspace, things are happening too fast, and this could become one of the security. It's not a major issue. Okay, let's not waste time on that. Now,
correct.
second important, General Chaturvedi is brought out is very. Actually, we didn't talk about the op level advantages of the exercise. So
Yeah,
interoperability is one of the major advantages of the exercises. That's why I said, it helps in collective security. In case tomorrow there is push comes to shove and we have to resort to collective security, we have interoperability. Interoperability in terms of communications. Once again, what sort of language we use, not language in terms of language, but in terms of operational language, what terms and what do we use, in terms of processes, in terms of procedures, all those things come into play. So interoperability is the biggest gain when you do these exercises. Then you pick up best practices from each one. Then you get exposed to technology, tactics, strategy, logistics, supply chain issues, HR, training, maintenance. There are a whole lot of advantages in these. You form a bond with these countries. You synergize. Cohesion comes in. It gives
absolutely.
boost to the bilateral relations, like defense diplomacy we talked about. Then you share op experiences. The countries which have op experience, high op experience, you gain from their op experiences. When you talk to them in seminars, when informal, even social events. Then very important, one more important thing is it's not only overall op preparedness which you gain. You also gain in dealing with gray zone operations. Very
That's
important,
right. That's right.
covert or overt, because you form a bond. You look into cyber space info and electronic warfare issues also. And that's another caution also, by the way. Cyber and electronic, you have to be very cautious when you're planning, because these are the issues which are very, very sensitive. So you learn to, even you gain intelligence from about your common enemy at times. So gray zone
Correct.
operations also capability increases. So these are the
Yeah,
advantages of yeah,
I did mention this thing about the, although we have arrangements between two countries to share fishing vessel data, but
yeah,
that same system can actually look at the submarines also going underwater. So we will get, in the name of fishing vessels, information or
yeah,
intelligence of our adversaries.
yeah.
So therefore, there is a definite advantage. One question related to this is, do we evolve common operating protocols during these exercises? so that it helps you in conduct of the exercise?
Yeah, definitely. So, so what happens is definitely we have to have all the common operating protocols. It starts with firstly, when you're planning, you see what is the level of, as I said, op capability. Okay, then after that you decide how many phases how will you take the exercise into higher exercise. You don't straight away jump into complex exercises with 100 aircraft milling around. So you start with phase one, phase two, phase three, and progress it that way. And
Okay.
what happens very important is common protocol is required for a lot of things, in terms of briefings, in terms of debriefings, in terms of conduct of the exercise, in terms of flying, in terms of flight safety considerations. So everyone has to come onto the same page. So there are almost three meetings which takes place, initial prelim, then midterm, then before the exercise and after the exercise. So common protocols are very important part of the whole exercise in various fields, not only in
Okay.
operation. Yeah.
So we now have, sir, four questions on media, all related to media. So I will club
Okay.
all of them, and then you can take the question. I'll just flash each one of them. First one is, when media gives an adverse reporting, who should be blamed, media or service personnel briefing them formally or informally? The second one is by Jan Chaturvedi. This highlighted media management. Is there a case for adopting a professional approach for briefing of press? I think related to that only. Then, how important these exercises are for military diplomacy? Again, this is although not connected to media, but we had discussed this particular issue during
Yeah.
our question answer sessions. uh, Last one is on the media, which you can take it on, is, yeah, Manoj Barnwal, as you brought out about media is not playing as per national objective. Should not we have better media management in the armed forces? Our handling with the media need a review. I think so. All these four questions about media you could
Sorry.
take on.
Yeah, yeah. So very true. I mean, all four questions are almost similar
Similar. Yeah,
in. So let me start with the defense diplomacy. We covered most of the things that it is a this exercise is a very important part of the military diplomacy. One issue I will just highlight is that you can employ these exercises for military. I've been advocating that military diplomacy has got about 17 to 20 various military activities which form part of the military diplomacy. And exercises are one of the major part of it. So you can have a sort of a escalatory or de-escalatory matrix or ladder, whatever you want to call it. Why I'm calling it escalatory or de-escalatory is when you want to do strategic coercion or a political signaling, you can play around with these activities and also the exercises to convey a certain message. As I said, in terms of number of exercises, in terms of number of participants, in terms of timing, in terms of location, in terms of stated objectives. So you can go up the escalatory ladder to convey a stronger message, or you can scale it down as per lower. That you can tune it according to your. That is the additional point I wanted to make. Now coming to a media management or media handling or whatever you want to call it, we have been told quite a bit at times, and at times this handling has been very good. I'll give you two examples of extremes. One is, after the Balakot, the Air
yeah,
Force, I think almost every think tank in the country came to a conclusion that the media was not handled. Media war was lost. Let's put it bluntly,
yeah.
said that we did everything, but the media narrative we lost because of lack of whatever proper response. And other extent is, Kargil operations to the end. If you remember, morning and evening briefings were given by all the three services as well as MOD. So that was a good example. Now,
Good
giving two
example.
more examples not related to, if you remember 2611, a lot of tactical situational awareness was created for the
For
terrorists
the
for the
by the
media
media.
reporting. Now, if you remember, you also took part in Pathankot, if you remember, correct?
I,
They're
yeah, yeah.
handling slightly better than earlier. I mean, these are examples. Okay. Now coming to the main question, it's not question of blaming one or the other. Media
The,
obviously thrives of.
so I want to add here, in the
Uh,
case of Pathankot, I
Yeah,
prevented them from entering the entire area. I just told them, "You're not going to enter." This was something which
yeah,
physically it had to be done, sir.
yeah. So media management or media management, they don't like the word media management, media handling or whatever you want to call it. We need to do much more. Actually, we are too liberal in our media. Anything, not only media, everyone. There's so many of our defense analysts like us, retired veterans on Twitter and here and there, and we keep giving our opinions. And at times we go into tactical levels, which is, I mean, to my
Not
mind,
required.
at times it's wrong. Yeah. So we need to
And
have
it's
the
just
mature outlook in our this thing. So it's not only media, and it's not question of blaming. Media always thrives on sensationalism. You know, dog bites a man is not a news. Man bites a dog is a news. So they will create a sensation, and they will create some. Even if the content is different, the headlines will be provocative. So they have to
absolutely,
thrive on it. So what we need to
absolutely.
do is we need to do a few things during the such situations. We need to have some stronger, maybe curbs or restrictions on the reporting system. That is one.
Okay.
Secondly, we need to work together. Okay. Thirdly, we need to have a 3-4 tiered approach to it. Nowadays, media narrative is very important. You take Ukraine war. It's a known fact that the Russians have not got into the media. I've got a different theory to altogether, but we'll not digress from the topic. And whereas the media is dominated by the Western narrative, correct? That's a conclusion everyone is drawing in the Ukraine war. So in India also we need to have a individual service media. We have started, we have these organizations, but we need to give them a proper direction, proper people, and it has to be a multi-domain presence in that media. This thing, so that overall it's not question of two or three people just handling it. They should be able to get input from all sort of directorates and everywhere from this thing. Then we need to have a tri-service level, maybe under headquarter IDS, and not leave it to
I think
one
that,
service.
yeah,
Then we need to
absolutely
have it at a national level. National
correct.
level media this thing, and it should not be Balakot. Said okay, you have done it, so you go and brief. No, it's not that way. It's a whole of country approach, and the modern warfare, if you see, which is changing, it is not the military war. It's not military. The common citizen is involved in a big way. The whole country is involved in a big way, and
Yeah.
especially with gray zone operations. So at a national level, we need to have a this thing. Then fourth thing we need to do is it is not only media handling only in concerned with military domain. You have to monitor all sort of domains for be proactive in the media handling. It's electronic media, it's cyber, it is internet,
Absolutely.
the whole sort of. Then fifth last point is we need to have some sort of a organization which keeps keeping eyes and ears to the ground and be proactive in his approach and see where the things are heating up or developing and start preparing before the events get start heating up. So that sort of
Correct.
proactive approach we should have. I think these are the
You're
few
absolutely
issues
yeah.
which I feel. Yeah,
My own experience has been, sir, that you're told in the last minute, okay, you three go ahead and give the media brief. So there is no direction, there is no any kind of guidance as to how you should go ahead. You're just cobbled together in the last minute and then told to go in front of the cameras and speak out whatever you want to speak out. One more question, sir, which has been very which is some kind of a very interesting question, I would say. It's come from Colonel Salvan. He says that the six nations actively participating in Tarang Shakti are also Quad and AUKUS partners, and these partnerships are more or less for Indo-Pacific centric. How will this exercise on land help? You can take on, sir. Otherwise, there's no big issue on this.
yeah. There are two parts of it. Two parts to the question. So first part is which all countries are taking part, who all are observers, and who are active. So at the moment it's all speculation. I don't think that list of 12 has come out. Whatever I read in the media, it said likely. So it said likely UK, France, USA, Australia. It's all likely. So I don't know whether the exact list. I have not come across it as yet. In any case, these are the major players which have got a major air forces. So obviously they will take part in this thing. Third thing, as I said, is when you decide on the actual participation, you have to take into account all these things. And even if they take part, it doesn't mean that we are doing a quad exercise. I mean, it's not that we are doing, it is a multilateral exercise. We got other people also. But in a subtle way, you can obviously use it to send some signal. So you have to play it around, and I'm sure it will be done this thing. The second part is how does it help the land battle? As I said, this is a Air Force exercise. So, and when you have so many countries, you have to play the game or the exercise. You have to decide the content based on all the participants. What is their level of combat? What is their interest? What are the stated objectives which are made are accordingly done. Now, in case you do a multi-service exercise, obviously, then the services come in, and then you bring in the special forces. You come in. Like I remember in some of these exercises, we send our special forces also, and they also
Garuds are
take
sent.
part. We send, yeah, Garuds are sent. Even para commandos are sent along with the Air
Oh,
Force.
yeah.
So,
Number
uh,
of.
so what I'm trying to say is not that Tarang Shakti only will not help the ground forces. It is if you do a multi-service exercise in future, then obviously that will help in two services coming together and learning best practices of jointmanship from each other. Yeah,
And also, let's not forget that India has a lot of island territories. So therefore, since the outlines of the exercise haven't come out as yet, I think we should comment on this once the outline of the exercises are told to us. It could be having a island kind of a exercise also taking place with the joint forces, joint multinational forces which are going to take part in this exercise. So like you said, the phase lines are going to be developed later on, or maybe the service headquarters are aware of it, we are not aware of it. So we should
yeah,
as of now not comment too much on this.
and
These things would be taken into account, sir.
very true. So the
uh,
contours of the exercise will come out subsequently. But
Correct.
one advice I basically am very what should I say safe sort of a player. So it's being a first international, first multinational exercise. I think we should not jump too much, and we should go slowly and keep
Yeah.
our objectives limited to a certain extent, and then
Yeah.
maybe subsequently develop it further, and rather than chewing too much before
Absolutely.
jumping into it too much. Yeah.
Right. One more question which Jan Chaturvedi had. It's an information question which he wants from me. If you are aware of it, do give it. Otherwise, he's asking about the MiG-29 engines. Has it been resolved, basically?
Uh, I think I'll answer him one to one.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
That's
not
why. That's
related to
why.
the exercise as such. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I said that it is not related to this discussion.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
could tell him later on, sir. And finally, I think, sir, last question we will take, and thereafter, there is often overlap of the Air Force with the Navy and the Army in deployment of air power. In some countries, the Air Force perform all air power roles. How to synergize? This is again a
We can go on
question.
for 3 or 4 hours on this subject, and I think this is the most hot
Yeah,
topic at the moment in Indian military circles and
correct.
defense analysts. Yeah. So
Asked you,
I'll
he has asked
no,
you,
I'm not. I'll just give you 2 3 minutes on this. I'll not go into very detailed this thing. U.S. Air
correct,
Force has got 4 air forces. Okay,
yeah,
it has got the U.S. Air Force. It has got the Air Wing of Army, Air Wing of Navy, and the Air Wing of Marines. And
correct.
each of their air forces is 2 to 3 times of the Indian Air Force. And if you
Yeah,
take cumulative, there's an organization which released the capabilities of the capability means war waging capabilities of the taking into various factors, and in that India comes fourth, uh, third, sorry, after US, then Russia, and then India, and then China. India is ahead of China about 5 points or so. But if you take cumulative US Air Force, it comes to 272 points, almost 5 times Indian capability, that sort of. But they have got a global this thing. So now, in that case, what happens is for synergizing. So my okay, forget about all that. Let's go into my take on one way saying it is desirable to have a air wing with the army and also with the navy. Very true, it should be. And this air wing, which is with the army and the navy, the air should be employed as per the tenets of warfare of the land warfare and the maritime warfare. True.
okay,
Whereas Indian Air Force or the Air Force will have a much larger role. In our case, we have not reached a stage economically or assets wise that we can have that luxury. we have our air wings, but there are certain offensive capabilities which we cannot divide at the moment. We don't have that kind of economic luxury. Hopefully, as we keep growing and time comes, hopefully all the three services have their air wing and equally capable of offensive, defensive, everything, and hopefully we reach that. So, as far as synergizing is concerned, at the moment, the best way of synergizing is a joint planning and operations and execution, both pre-planned as dynamic in war. That is my take on the whole thing. And maybe later on, once we have adequate economic and military power, we can go into sort of theaterization and whatever our expeditions. And the whole of India could be one theater. Indian Ocean could be another theater. We can go into like these world powers are doing. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I think we have overshot our allotted time of 30 plus 10. We are crossing, nearly touching 1 hour. It was wonderful talking to you on this very important subject. And I think our viewers, especially the people who are appearing for staff college, etc., will be benefited a great deal. They can expect a question in their papers on exercise Tarang Shakti. I can tell them for sure. And your views would definitely come handy as far as these people are concerned, and also for the common public. It is better to know the realities on the ground and rather than talking in the thin air. Media management was an issue which needs very strict implementation and correct management. Okay, we'll not use the word management, but correct handling would be the right way to go ahead. Thanks, sir, and Jai Hind once again, and very good evening to our audience as well, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I enjoyed the interaction. And if anybody has
Yes.
any questions, I have a blog also. I'll share it with you. You can share it. And it's got about 360
I'll
posts
do
now
that, sir.
on various issues. And any
I'll do
question
that.
you
I'll
can
do that,
send
sir.
me directly. I will try and answer. Okay. Thank you
Okay,
very
sir.
much.
Right, right, sir. Bye, sir.